Vice President at the Industrial Minerals Association, and I have here with me Chris Greising, the Vice President for Government Affairs at IMA. Also on the phone we have Chad Hancher from MSHA. And thank you everyone for joining us today for this important webinar. We've been actually trying to schedule this webinar for a couple years. We kept talking about it and finally got it all together, and I think it's very important. MSHA's website just has an abundance of data and capabilities that I think many of us are not aware of, and Chad's going to help us out with that today. But before we get started, let me let everyone know that after the webinar is complete, we'll send out a recorded version of the webinar. So it will include audio and video, and you'll be able to see and hear Chad going through the website. And Harvey Kirk, by the way, is going to be joining us from MSHA a little bit later on as well. So you'll be able to see these guys go through the website and listen to the webinar in case anybody missed it and that kind of thing. Also, if you have any questions, all the lines are muted, so you won't be able to speak. We have a lot of people on the phone today, and we won't be able to open up the phone lines. But you will be able to type questions in, and just go ahead and type your questions in at any time. If we feel like we should interrupt Chad and read the question at the moment, we will. Otherwise, we'll save all the questions until the end. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to introduce Chad. Chad Hancher has served as a management and program analyst for the Director of Program Evaluation and Information Resources in Arlington, Virginia, since June 2006. In that position, he is responsible for providing and analyzing data from MSHA's information technology resources, including Part 50 employment, accident, injury, and illness data. And Chad and his colleague Jaime are the ones that give IMA all of our injury data that we're able to report all the time, so we're very appreciative of their efforts in that regard. They've helped our safety committee direct their efforts quite a bit, and we appreciate that. So with that, Chad, I'm going to turn it over to you. Everybody should be able to see on their screen Chad's computer with the MSHA website pulled up.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl. As Daryl said, my name is Chad Hancher, and I've been at MSHA for 7 years doing a lot of the data analysis. We've been helping out IMA for as long as I can remember with data. And so what they've asked me to do is walk through the different data that we have on our website. So that includes the data retrieval system, the open government data sets, which is a bit new in the last couple of years, and also some of the newer things we put out there as far as the pattern of violations. So first you see here is our website, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the mine data retrieval system. For a while we were calling it the data retrieval system. Now it's the mine data retrieval system, but same thing, nothing's changed. So to start here, you can either put in your mine ID if you know it, or you can go to the data retrieval system homepage. So if I click on the homepage here, it gives me a lot of search options. You'll see you can search by mine ID, you can search by operator or mine name, you can search by contractor ID or name, controller name, and then there's some other different ways to search it related to violations, high dollars report, etc. So most of you are probably used to searching it by mine ID, or by name. So let's put in here a name that I worked a lot with, which was Upper Big Branch. That's an ID I remember. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. You see the mine ID, the operator name, operator begin date, mine name, controller start date, mine status date, mine material, type of mine, the location, which now that is the physical locations, county and state, and then the address of record. A lot of times people ask us for the mine location address. This is not necessarily the mine location address. It is the address of record. To the top right here, we have the operator history. And then if you scroll down, you see the different reports that you can run. So the default for this is the overview, which if you get report will just show you some accident, injury, and assessments information. There's the inspections tab, which shows You know, all the inspections for whatever begin and end date you stick in here. Accidents, you know, any reportable accident. Violations, which for the violations you can sort 4 different ways. You can sort it by issue date, final order date, standard, or case number. There's the violation per inspection day report. There's the Pov Monitoring report, which is fairly new. And then there are 3 different samples reports. So you have the inspector samples, the operator samples, and the court's results. So if I click Overview here, click Get Report, and I'm on the Overview button. Come down, and back to 2002, you can see the different fields here. So we have the number of fatal operator injuries, non-fatal days lost injuries, contractor injuries, contractor non-fatal days lost injuries, hours worked, production, that sort of thing. And then we have it compared to the national average here. And so scroll down a little bit further, you see some assessments information. And so this excludes contractor information right here. So obviously Upper Big Branch closed following the explosion, and so you can see their assessments information. So if we click this button here, we'll go back to the data retrieval system, or we can hit our back button here, and it'll take us back to the previous page. So I know a lot of you are familiar with this, but I just want to make sure everyone is aware of it. So if I were to click the Inspections tab, I can either hit Get Report, which will use this date, January 1st, 2011 as the beginning date, or I can put in an older date. So let's say I put in here 1/1/2008 as my beginning date. Oops. And then I click Inspections and Get Report. So what comes up here is all inspections that were conducted at the Upper Big Branch mine from the date I put in as the begin date till the end date. And so you can scroll down and see, so you have the event number, the details, the type of inspection that it was, the beginning date, the ending date, and then the number of citations and orders were issued. So if I just pick one of these and click Violations, it'll pull up all of the citations and orders that were issued during that event. Give it a second here. So this particular inspection, event number 6288657, just had 1 citation, and then gives you the details of that. So one of the nice features I think we have is that you can click the specific standard, and it'll take you right to it. So you don't have to look it up if you don't know it. If we go back and we look at accidents, same type of thing. We can put in the beginning date and end date, or if we leave that blank, it'll use default to whatever date is shown in red up here. So again, I hit Get Report, and now I see all the reportable injuries for this mine. A little bit later, I'm going to show you how you can go in using our open government data sets and pull all this information yourself into whatever database you use. The way this is set up is obviously a canned report, so you know whatever mine ID, date range, report you choose, it's going to spit out a canned report. Let's see, the violations. Most people normally, I think, sort this by issue date. I know Upper Big Branch had a lot of violations, so put an end date in here and just show the types of information that comes up when we run this report. So same type of thing. We've got case number, date issued, final order date, etc. The VPID is something we put out probably in the last 5 years or so. And what it does is it takes a 15-month history of final orders. And so if I put in here, if I choose, let's see, an older date, it's going to give me a 15-month history backing it off 1 day. So if I use 4/1/2009 as the date, it's going to give me a report from January 1st, 2008 through March 31st, 2009. And so it shows here your on-site inspection hours divided by 5, so that's your inspection days. it shows the number of times each standard was cited. And then if you scroll down, it'll do that for each standard. And then if you scroll down, it'll show you the total number, which if you click this View Violations button, it'll show you the specific 199 in this case, and then the violations per inspection day. If you come down a little further, this national VPID averages gets updated, I believe, once a month. And so what it's showing here is the most recent 15-month period for the different mine types. So obviously you have coal and metal, and then the 3 mine types: facility, surface, and underground. It's just one way you can compare your mine to the national average. So I'm actually going to touch on this POV monitoring tool a little bit later. Daryl, do you have that metal non-metal mine ID you had given me? Or can you look it up? It'd be better if I had a
second. Now I'll get it for you.
Cool. I meant to pull that up earlier, and I don't have it up. So make more sense to go through the samples for a metal non-metal mine than the one I was looking at. But while Daryl's looking that up, a different way to search, like I said, is operator and mine name. You can search by state. You can search coal or metal. A lot of people get confused and they say, why isn't my mine showing up? So you want to make sure that the box that says include or exclude abandoned mines is either selected or deselected based on what you're looking for.
Okay, Chad, I had sent you 3. I'll read one of them to you now.
All right, go ahead.
It's 3100.
Yep.
375.
375. Okay, I apologize about that. You did send me that.
Sorry.
Earlier. Okay, so same type of information here, just for a metal non-metal mine. One thing I should have pointed out in the overview earlier is a lot of people ask what this, the national average is really for in this overview table. So once it pulls this up, the mine type national fatal incidence rate, for example, this column, second one from the right. So this mine is a surface construction sand and gravel would be, using the canvas code, it'd be under sand and gravel. So this would be all surface sand and gravel mines would be the mine type that it's using to calculate this. So for like coal, we've got coal underground, bituminous coal underground, anthracite. It's using 2 levels. So it's the mine type, so surface underground facility, and then the canvas code. So metal, non-metal, stone, sand and gravel, etc. So we get that question a lot, and so hopefully that clears that up. Okay, like I said, I'm going to speak about this POV monitoring tool in a little bit, but this is one way you can get to it from this screen. And so for metal non-metal mines, we can just click Health Samples and Get Report. So if I scroll down here to personal health sampling results, it tells me how long Uniman's been the operator. Talks about the date of the sample, the location, the job, the contaminant that was sampled, the concentration, the PEL, the PPE, contractor ID if available, and then the action. And so we recently have put out samples on this open government data site that I'm going to speak about next. And so just one way. Here it is in a CAN format, a little bit easier to use if you're just trying to quickly look up a mine. A lot of people ask, for operator or controller level reports, the mine data retrieval system is not set up that way. As I'm sure most of you know, it's only at the mine level. And so maybe in the future we'll be looking into that. But right now, all of our data, the way it's in each of our tables, is set up to be pulled at the mine level. And with the way mines, come and go with operator and controller histories, it can be very tedious to try to figure out to roll up some of these numbers from the mine level to the operator or the controller level. So here you can see that the data the data for accidents is available from 83 on, violations and court results 95 on, metal non-metal health samples October of 96, and then the VPID from 2006 on. So if you scroll down further, you can pull some employment and production reports. And so this is defaulted to give you data back to 2010. It actually will go all the way back to 1983. So let's say for this mine I was interested in the annual number of employees and hours worked. So I could type in 1983, let's say till 2012. In this case, I'm going to say annual. You could also get it quarterly and get report. So it's from most recent to the oldest. You can see here by subunit. So in this case, this mine reports 2 different subunits: strip, quarry, open pit, and office workers at the mine site, the number of hours they worked during this period, and then the sum average annual employees. So in this case, this mine in 2012 employed 101 miners.
Chad, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it possible to, you said you couldn't pull it up by operator, but is it possible to put multiple IDs in to do a multiple search at one time?
You can only do one search at a time. You can search by operator, but you still have to. So okay, let's go forward a page here. So say that I knew that the operator was Unimin Corporation, and I went to the data retrieval system, and I searched by operator or mine name, in this case operator name, and I either typed that or pasted that in. I hit search. It's taking a second. Apologize, some of these searches are quick and some aren't. This one seems to not be as quick. Eventually what this is going to do, though, is spit out a list of mine IDs for each mine for this operator, and then you can click each mine individually and get these reports. But there's no way to type in more than one and get, all the data at once. It's just not set up that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. A little later, like I said, I'll show you the best way to go in and try to analyze more mines at one time. A lot of people, we get a lot of requests for high dollar citations orders. So at the bottom of this search page, there is a report where you can come in here and again put a date range on it. So let's say coal. So this is going to give us the high dollar report for all coal mines since 10/1/2011. So this report is set up to give us all violations that were assessed at $10,000 or more. These tables that are produced in any of these reports can be pasted into Excel. They take some work. They're not ideal, but they are tables, so they can be copied and pasted into Excel. I think going forward, we hope to do a lot more with exporting this information to Excel. What I'll show you later is it can be exported to Excel, but it requires more manual work than these tables, than what's shown in these tables. So I could go through all these different ways to search, but each one ultimately ends up at at the same page for each mine. So again, great way to, if you have a list of mines that you're trying to find data about, just knowing the mine ID or a different way to search, and then just pulling the information that you need. This is updated every day. So at one point, at least when I was hired a few years ago, it was only updated once a week, but now it's updated every day. One thing I meant to mention, I lost that ID that you gave me, Daryl, but I'll just use the upper big branch again. In the Inspections tab, if I click See Details here, not the violation, but the details of the event. It'll tell me how many inspectors were on site. Excuse me, not on site necessarily time, but reported time under this event number. It tells you whether it will or will not be included in the VPID. And not all inspection types go towards the VPID, and I'll show you the ones that do here in a second. This is a bad example because it was after the mine was closed, but it'll tell you the total hours spent, how many on-site hours, and for coal, it splits out MMU pit time, out by area time, surface area time. Metal, non-metal splits it out a little bit differently, but same idea. It tells you how many hours a supervisor spent, and then the total VPID hours. So the way that's calculated is on-site hours for inspectors minus any time that a supervisor spent on-site. And so, bad example, but you get the idea. So if I come back here and go to VPID, in this long description of how this number is calculated, it talks about inspection days. And so the way it's calculated is takes the on-site hours for ARs, excludes supervisory and trainee hours, and then you divide it by 5 and round up by 1. So if I click this link here, it shows the inspection types that are included in the VPID number. So see, it's not all of them, but in most activities MSHA conducts are included in that number. So that by clicking that details, that's just one way to know the on-site inspection hours for your mine. One thing we have been, a lot of people are requesting is to be able to know the number of on-site hours for a specific date range. Like right now, you know that if an inspection started, January 1st and was over March 31st and all of that, the inspection hours are during that time frame. But if you're trying to run a report where an inspection overlapped, the time frame you're looking at, you don't necessarily know exactly how many hours should be included in just the time period you're looking at. So as part of our open government data sets, we're looking to put a way for a user to find out exactly how many on-site inspection hours there were, basically any date range. And so that's one thing that we plan to do. Our open government data sets are evolving, so we just started by putting out the most readily available information. Now we're trying to find ways to add to that.
Hey Chad, I had a related question just come in. It asks, can you do a multiple search under the open system?
Well, let me get to that in a second.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think that pretty much covers the data retrieval system. There could be specific questions on specific mines, but again, it's a good way to get a canned report on a mine that you're looking at. So that's really probably one of the more popular or most popular links on our website. It's the one that we get asked about the most. And again, we have some other things we're going to do with the data, hopefully in the future. So if I go back to our website here and come back down to data transparency at MSHA, a lot of you are probably familiar with the pattern of violations page. And so there's a couple different things you can do data-wise on this page. Daryl, can you please give me that ID? I'll write it down this time.
Yeah, sorry, hold on one second.
Sorry.
It is 3100375.
Okay, so if I want to look up the monthly monitoring tool for pattern of violations for that mine, I can just type it in over here. Or I could have put it in on straight from MSHA's homepage. Let's say I knew the ID and this is the report I was trying to run. I could just type in the ID here. And so this screening for the injury information from July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013, so that's 4 quarters. The 12-month enforcement range is August 1st to July 31st. And then it comes in here and shows me the current criteria that's used for screening mines, where this mine specifically falls into that, how their violations and severity measure, et cetera, compare to the screening criteria. And so at least 50 citations, S&S, in the last 12 months. Obviously, one is not. 8 or more per 100 hours in the last 12 months. So this mine had 1 S&S in the last 12 months, 53 on-site inspection hours. So 1.9 is obviously less than 8, so no. Degree of negligence for at least 25% of the S&S citations orders during the most recent 12 months is high or reckless disregard. Again, no. And just it tells you just all the different criteria. So severity measure, if you click this blue icon here, it goes into a discussion of how the severity measure is calculated. You can just go down here and look at all the different criteria and how any one mine compares to it. And if you just really want a really quick overview of whether this mine would currently meet the criteria or not, this box here that says overall results will either say yes or no. And so this gets updated on the 15th of every month. So the next time it'll be updated will be September 15th. Obviously, Part 50 data is quarterly, so this will not change until we have another quarter's worth of data in the system. And then, so when this is run, say it's September 15th, the 12-month enforcement range will be just add one, move one month current. And so this is a tool that is useful to just, if you have a list of 10 mines and you're wondering how they are compared to the criteria, you just punch them in here and it quickly, just a tool that compares your data to the POV criteria. One addition to this page, which we put out not long ago, at least probably a few weeks ago, is this S&S rate calculator. And what this does is, I'll just read it. It's what it's originally intended to do is for mine operators to implement a cap with goals for reductions in a mine's rate of S&S violations to determine if it's meeting its goals. But it's really more useful than that. I mean, you can take your mine ID, punch it in here, put in any date range you want, and figure out what its S&S rate is per 100 inspection hours. So if I click S&S rate calculator, it brings me to a screen where it tells me to put in my mine ID, my date range, begin and end date. It says here that the current operator history will be used, and then that the data is only available from January 2010 on. So I'm going to punch in this mine ID that Daryl gave me, 3100375. Let's say I wanted to look at this mine's S&S per 100 inspection hours for calendar year 2012. So I just punch in 1/1/2012, 12/31/2012, hit search. So during this period, this mine just had 1 S&S citation order and 47.75 inspection hours for S&S rate of 2.09. So like was on the data retrieval system for a different report, if you put in the date range that this table is showing, if I were to put in August 1st, 2012 to July 31st, 2013, I could compare this mine to the national average. So I can see the top 35 percentile, the top 50 percentile, and then all mines in that mine type and classification. So this is a good way. I mean, it's showing here is for operator that has caps to track their mines, but I really think this tool can be used to track any mine and should be used. It's a new addition. It's part of the POV process. So what I'd like to show you next is our open government data sets, which is under other data resources. This is something that we've just started. I don't know the exact date. I could look it up, but it's about 2 years ago, and we've been adding to it as we can. So this is the President's first executive action was the Open Government Memorandum called for more transparency, participatory and collaborative government. So every agency had to put out data that they had. So what we have here is, and as it says here, this is updated just once a week, every Friday. We put all of our accident injury data out there, all of our sample data out there. We just added this one, conference data, quarterly and yearly employment and production data, inspection data, address of record data, which we get asked for a lot, mines data set, which is all the information we have in our what we call our mines table, noise samples, health samples, and then violations. And if you click on any of these definition files, so let's say I'll come down to the mines data set, the definition file tells you exactly what is in this table if you were to download it. And so I was telling Daryl earlier that we get tons and tons of requests for the current list of mines, or all mines in Pennsylvania, or all underground mines in West Virginia. And so with these open government data sets, it allows the user to basically download all the data that we use from day to day. So if I were to open the mines data set, these are all zip files that include a text file. So if I click the mines data set here and it wants to download the zip file, I'll just click open, and then here is my text file. I'm going to extract my text file. If there's questions on how to do this and I'm going too fast, I can try to write something up for Daryl later that he could send out. But so I'd probably go a little bit too fast for some people. So I'm going to save this file, text file, and then a lot of people are familiar with Excel, so I'm going to use Excel to open up this file. So now I have my text file here. I'm going to open up Excel and import this text file. So in a matter of minutes, I can go out to our website and get a list of every mine that we have. So if you're familiar with Excel at all, under the Data tab, you can import data from text. So I'm going to click from text. It's going to ask me what file I want to open. So this mines.txt file is on my desktop. I'm going to click import. So then it wants to know how the data is formatted. So if you come to our website, I shouldn't have skipped this at the beginning, but it tells you how to import this information into a database of your choice. So a lot of people use Excel or Access. And so these are pipe stem delimited. And so back to Excel, I'm going to click delimited, and then next. And then the default on this is tab delimited, but they are pipe stem delimited. So if I click other and type pipe stem and click next, and then it wants to know for each of the columns of data, how is it formatted. So I'm not going to take the time to format all of these categories, but if you want the leading 0 for your mine IDs, you could make these text. Come across to some of these dates, you could make date. I mean, it's all on how you want it formatted. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and then I hit finish. So now it wants to know where in my Excel file I want to put this data. So if I just click OK, what it's going to do is take all the information from that text file on our website and then import it into Excel. So depending on the size of these files, some take longer than others, but so now in a matter of minutes, I've got every single mine ID in our system, and basically all the information we have in this table in Excel. So I can come across here and I can see all the different begin dates, what office it's in, the SIC information, etc. So this really helps us because we get asked for this so often, and that a lot of people don't realize that it's just all out there. So my name is
Chad, if you could write just some short directions up on that, that would be awesome. I can send
it out
to webinar participants.
One reaction we've gotten on that is that the files are too big, not necessarily the mine file, but like say the inspection file. All of the ones that have data back a certain ways. So like inspections, violations, accidents, the data we have is from 2000 forward. And so what we plan to do is so you don't have to download that same file every time, to make one that you could just download the the 2000 data or the 2001 data. You don't have to open a huge file each time. So that's something that was asked for, and that's coming eventually. So let's go back here and use something that, like Daryl, you guys are always asking for accident injury data. And so if I come to the accident injury data set and I click on it, again, I'm just going to open this and save this text file to my desktop. And then in Excel, I'm going to open a new file. Again, import from text. And like Daryl said, I'll send out some directions on how to do this. But import all the accident data we have from January 2000 forward. So again, it's pipe stem delimited. I'm only going to format the columns that I'm going to use in this example, but a lot of these are better to be saved as text so that you don't lose the leading zero. So you can just see all the data that's in here. We've got, basically, if we collect it, it's in here. So I'm going to go ahead and, just for this example, import this data. This one might take a minute or so. I think it's close to 200,000 records. What this lets you do is analyze this data in a way that suits your company or you, rather than relying on the data retrieval system to spit out a canned report that maybe is not exactly what you're used to looking at or is useful for your company. So once this downloads, I'll show you some different ways that you can look at this information. With Excel, I think people that are familiar with it use pivot tables a lot, and they are really, really, really useful for just very quickly being able to figure out different types of information. So basically, every degree 1 through 10 injury in our system is now in Excel. And so I'm not going to go through all these categories, but basically, if we collect it, it's in here. So let's say, for example, I was trying to figure out how many sand and gravel fatalities there have been since 2000. I've got all the data in here. It's just a matter of finding it now. So if you're familiar with Excel and pivot tables, you click this Insert Pivot Table. And Daryl, I'll send the directions for this as well. But it asks me what data I want to look at. It automatically selects it all, so I can just hit OK. And then basically now, see if I can minimize this. Okay, I can pull any report I want on this type of information. So let's say, like I said, I want to know calendar year as my row. I want to count how many accidents are. So anytime we count accidents or injuries, we use the document number. That's a distinct value. And so I'm going to count the number of document numbers. And so if we were to just stop right here, you can see that this would be for all coal and metal, all degree 1 through 10 injuries and illnesses. And excuse me, this would include accidents too, which are just degree zeros. How many of them there were by calendar year since 2000. So say I wanted to add to that the degree of injury. Let's say I wanted to make that a column label. So I could just grab it from this pivot table field list, throw it in here, and now I can see that there were this many degree 0 accidents, there were this many days away from work only accidents. A lot of people are interested in fatalities, so I could scroll over and see, oops, the number of fatalities each year. And so say I wanted to split this now, let's see, by occupation. And I'm going to put that in as a report filter. A report filter just lets you go back and forth between, if you don't want to show them all at the same time, you can put it in here as a report filter and just select one at a time. So let's say now I wanted to look at, let's see, any one of these really. And actually you can select more than one at a time if you select multiple items. So let's say I wanted to just look at auger operators. I could just select that from this list, say OK, and now here's all the same information just for auger operators. So you could slice and dice this data to death. I don't want to do that and take up all the time, but there are a lot of times you guys are asking for information sliced and diced a lot of ways, and this is just one way that you can do it quickly. So each one of these files is just one table. If you're handy at Excel, you can download, like the mines table and the accidents table, and then do a lookup to try to figure out what, to add fields to the database to what you're looking at. And so, again, there's just really millions of ways you could slice and dice this information. So any one of these fields could be, basically any question you ask about accidents could be answered in a pivot table in this. So if you wanted to know which controllers had the most accidents, you could add that to your filter. Operator, if you wanted to split out contractors, you could do that. Just whichever way you want to look at it. And so after this, I'll send you those two instructions on how to first download the data and then how to work with it in Excel. Again, I think I have to count them, but I think we're up to about 10 different data sets, and with more to come. So again, if you don't want to look at it in a canned report, this is just one way that you can pull the data and just look at it any way that you want yourself. So Daryl, are there any questions? Harvey just stopped by and he can get started on his part. I've gone through the data retrieval system and the pattern of violations data and the open government set data. I could spend hours and hours on it, but if there's anything specific anybody wants to know.
Hey, Chad, I don't have any particular questions right now, but I do have some comments on people's amazement with watching you make an Excel spreadsheet dance.
I was trying to go slow.
You're a data master, and we will appreciate the directions. But no, I think we're all set right now, and that's going to be. It's amazing how much information you've given us in 45 minutes, so we appreciate that.
Very good. Well, Harvey is here now, so I am going to turn this over to him if you want to introduce him.
I'll do that. Welcome, Harvey, and allow me to introduce Harvey. Harvey Kirk has 30-plus years experience in the mining industry, split in thirds between plant engineering and management, safety, health and training, and government service. He currently serves as a senior mine safety and health specialist at MSHA's headquarters in Arlington. He has authored technical publications and presented on topics including safety and risk management, machine and conveyor guarding, coal firing safety, engineering controls for noise, and control of histoplasmosis for ozone hazards. And thank you for including the word histoplasmosis in your bio there, Harvey. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, Harvey.
And you didn't trip on it either.
I practiced.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I understand that you'd like to take a look at the metal non-metal resources page, and so I'll give you a little overview of what's there if you're not familiar with it. We've found from talking with other folks in industry that not everybody realizes that it's there or what can be found on it. So from the home page of the MSHA website, if you scroll down through the Find It Quick Links into the Quick Links Hot Topics section, the fourth bullet down is the metal non-metal resource page, and we'll just click on that. as an overview, I'll show you that you have several sections in here. One is compliance and policy updates, and then if you move down, you'll find one on general information, another one on safety information, then there's one on health information, one on accident tips by Mimetype, risk assessment, and management. So now we'll take a look at these sections in a little more detail. In the first one, compliance and policy updates, we have a number of things. We've got some answers to frequently asked questions, and we've got other materials there. The purpose of having these materials on here, and they're all links to other documents, is to provide is to improve industry understanding of the standards and compliance. So it's a compliance assistance page, and also to communicate policy information to industry. As you know, we have performance-based standards, and although they provide a lot of flexibility to the mine operators as far as compliance, sometimes there's a level of misunderstanding or amount of unclarity, if that's a word, that you don't have with specific standards that spell out exactly how compliance must be made. And because compliance is often in the eye of the beholder, sometimes you get differences of opinion between people who are working at the mine and think that this is fine, and then there are inspectors who say, well, it's not fine. And a lot of people are working off their own kind of historical perspective, and to fit into it are all the things that they've grown up with in the mining industry over the years that they've been there. Some things that they've seen, not seen, and that influences the decisions on whether this is compliant or not. So in order to improve enforcement consistency and also to respond to industry concerns, we started this page, and we started it with the compliance and policy updates section. These at the top, you'll find the answers to FAQs, and let's just skip down through a couple of them there. Some of these have been up for a couple of years or so, and we'll take one on machinery, equipment, and tools, 14205. Let that load up. It's not a program policy letter or a program instruction bulletin or anything like that. It's an explanation of this particular standard, and it starts out by quoting the standard and what the focus of it is. In this particular case, it says the program policy manual does not address this standard, and there are no new interpretations. Well, program policy manual doesn't address a lot of standards, and you can't always go to the program policy manual and expect to find something which makes it clear at that point. So we had questions from people in industry about why citations were being issued under this standard. When we looked into it, we found that there was well, it probably arose out of the fact that this was one of the standards that was included in the rules to live by, and it received a little bit higher focus from people in industry, and especially the inspectors who were looking at it to see, well, gee, now I wonder if we're going to have violations of this standard. When we went back and looked at the citations and orders that were written under this, we found that a lot of them were issued incorrectly, that this standard was cited instead of more specific standards that should have been. And although whereas most of them, when we evaluated them, did address violative conditions, they didn't necessarily cite the right standard. So we put this out for a couple people, for a couple groups, information. One, industry, who said, why the sudden run-up in 14205 citations? And then we also provided to our inspectors a training session that lasted probably about an hour during their annual refresher training that went over just exactly what 14205 was supposed to address and what it wasn't. And we specified to them that if there was a more specific standard to use that one. And we gave them a dozen and a half examples of where the wrong standard had been used. And we've seen that. We've seen the number of 14205 violations come down. You can see the highlighted section there, and that's probably where some of the focus came from, as I said before. But this was put out, as were several of these others here. One's on berms and guardrails, another on ROPS and seat belts. We have one on parking procedures for unattended equipment. Questions that came from the folks in industry. Some came from individual mines or mining associations. Some came from alliances such as IMA or NSSGA. They came from a variety of places. And where we saw that there was some confusion or a need for to elucidate this thing, then we wrote these up and published them on the web. So the links are there for you to take a look at. And these have been up for most of these in this particular case for a couple of years or so, or close to it. The other material, some of it is it dates back to that. Some is almost brand new. Let me call your attention down toward the bottom of it. You folks have probably seen these, but this is where we put a link to the guarding phase 1 and guarding phase 2 PowerPoint presentations that we put out. One in 2010 and the second one in 2012. And it makes a convenient place so that if people want to look at that, they can go right here and they can either get a PDF or a PowerPoint version of it. Let me point out while we're here, right below that is a rather enigmatic statement, Federal Register document 88-whatever, safety standards. When we went back and reviewed all of the guarding standards, and there were multiple ones that are included in each of the conveyor belt section and in the machinery standard, we went back to the preamble for when this group of standards was published. It goes back to 1988, and there are page after page after page of explanations and discussions about each one of the rules in there, and their comments from people in industry about the proposed standard, and then the responses to them. It's really an excellent look at kind of what the people who wrote these standards were thinking about and what their intention was. It's kind of like going back to the writings of the framers of the Constitution. You can see what their intent was, and over the years we found that there were some number of changes that had been made in the way they were being interpreted in industry and in MSHA, and the way it was being enforced. So we read it very closely. And when we were training all of our inspectors on what the compliance aspects were, what was and what wasn't compliant, what was acceptable and what wasn't, then we used the listings from the preamble and quoted them, and we had them look them up, and we gave them copies of it, and we read it and we discussed why and whatever. So we used that, and in the explanations on the various slides, those who look through the PowerPoints will find in the notes in a number of places the preamble says this, and then we quote that, and then we go on from there. when we put the first guarding PowerPoint out, we didn't include the Federal Register document. But when we were reviewing the internally the one for guarding machinery, someone in the agency suggested that if we're going to refer to the preamble, we should make it available to people so that they can look at it themselves if there are any questions. So that's why that's there. It doesn't say this goes for guarding. You have to read a little bit into it or take a look at it yourself, but that's what it is, and that's why it's there. We have some other clarification of standards. The bullet right at the top is the something we've put out clarifying 4 standards that came out recently, and I don't know whether you have seen them yet or not. We will just take a quick look at it. It's in the same sort of a format as the guarding standard. There aren't as many notes in it as in the other, but if you look through it, it talks about the fuel lines, and there's a clarification about what it applies to. All right, continue there. We have some illustrations that show where the shutoff valves are supposed to be. All right, we have some photographs of violative and compliant situations. This one shows, for instance, that a valve needs to be well upstream of this equipment here in order to comply with the standard. We discussed the fact that the standard does not apply to self-controlled, self-propelled equipment, and these are no pictures, just to illustrate the fact that we're talking about mobile equipment there. Procedures during repair and maintenance, 14105. Some of these go together. Let's see. I'm not sure I can get back to that. We quoted the standards. There were some questions about which standard should be written at which time, especially for lockout and tag out. So we put this information out here, 12016, suitable warning notices. It's been cited quite a few times. This is just a continuation of the standard. Those are the standards that we were, and then we went down through each one of them and described when they should be cited and when they shouldn't. And we also included the number of times that these standards have been cited and if they were cited in fatality cases, and they've been cited a lot. So we're trying to give our inspectors guidance as to when one standard should be used and when another, blocking against hazardous motion. So I won't go through them or try to explain it right now, but we have some examples in here of blocking, for instance, more blocking. This is on mobile equipment, and then we've got it actually spells out what the guidance is and why, and we have some references here to some manuals that MSHA published. So that's the basics of what we're looking for there. If we a lot of these others here in the center are hazard alerts. One's on pipe safety, conveyor startup fatalities. You'll recognize them as the standard MSHA hazard alert. I don't think we're mailing any of these out at this particular time, so they're posted on the website. A lot of them are published in the What's New section on the home page for a week or two to draw people's attention to them, and then they're moved to a kind of a permanent location over in this area. So the rest of them sort of worked out. We also have a program policy letter in there that's been recently published, or published since this particular resources page was initiated, and a program information bulletin, so that they're there for people to go back to and read whenever they would like to. Let me see here. So the idea is to eliminate any misunderstanding, especially in the FAQ answers. Sometimes these are controversial issues, so we want to make sure that everybody understands, including our mine inspectors. And you know, they look at this too, and we use this for training for them as well. The rest of the materials either clarify enforcement criteria or hazard alerts. There's some best practices in here, the program policy letters and the PIBs, and then of course the explanations of the standard and some related materials there. In the general information section, once again, these are links to other documents or other sections of the website, and we have addresses, phone numbers. We have maps. There are here's a link so that people who want to come here and need to file a hazardous condition complaint can find the telephone numbers. So there's a link to the data retrieval system that Chad was just discussing. Something here about Part 50. Once again, being able to contact MSHA with it. We have links to the metal and non-metal program policy manual here, and there are a couple sections. One is a general section, and then we have all the parts from parts 56 and 59 that have entries in the program policy manual. You'll find links to them right here, so that you can scroll down through this, and if a standard has an explanation or a manual clarification, then you'll be able to find it here. Let's kind of pick one out here on distribution boxes, just for one of a reason. 56, 57, 12, 006 distribution boxes. It describes what the standard is about, and it talks about that it's defined under definitions, and then it goes through, gives a little bit of information about that. So each one of these entries here will have a program policy explanation about it. Okay. So this provides you a link to it. Metal and non-metal health inspection procedures. Actually, this page gives you more than just the health inspection procedures. If you start at the top, you can see it's all of MSHA's handbooks here, including the ones for coal. We have the metal and non-metal sections here. We have some for technical support, EPD. Right, and you can, if you look through here, you can find the general inspection procedures manual. Here's the metal and non-metal health inspection procedures, and you can either look at the whole thing, which is huge, or chapter by chapter. And then there are some standards for certain subchapters here, Part 56, 57, 58. If you want to look at the standards for that, you can go right here. It can be accessed from using another link in the on MSHA's homepage. But if you're working from the metal non-metal resources page, you've got it right here. You can go down. You can look at any standard that you want to, and open it up. And this is a link to that particular standard. By the way, any of the standards that have a program policy manual explanation, you'll find down at the bottom, underneath where the standard is quoted, there will be a link there to take you to the program policy manual as well. So that's what we have in the general information section. Under safety information, we have a lot more hazard alerts and compliance assistance materials in there, and they're fairly self-explanatory. Here's one that we put out. It was mainly aimed at the cement industry sometime back, about fuel firing explosions. We're we noticed that there was seemed to be a rash of them of occurring all over the country. We put this out and sent it was targeted to some specific sections. Others go out to everybody in industry, such as this one on maintenance and repair materials and procedures, where we find that it's a good idea to put out a hazard alert, or there've been a number of fatalities or injuries. We will find their way there, and a lot of them have some sort of best practices statements in there. You can use them as whatever interest you have at your particular operation, or you can use them for training as well. You'll also find here we have a second link to the guarding conveyor. It's the one PowerPoint. The one that we looked at up above had a duplicate here. I noticed that we don't have a second link in this section for the machinery PowerPoint. Probably an oversight, but you'll find some of this information you can get to from different links. Sometimes working off the same page. The next section is on the health information. We've got compliance assistance materials in here. Once again, the statements of best practices. There are some single source pages and some inspection procedure manuals also. So here at the top we have this 5657.5002 operator survey requirements, and there's the procedure instruction letter that was published on it. You can get to that and read it. We have the inspector training, the policy briefing, the news release. Under noise exposure, there's a discussion of the noise emphasis program. We have the inspector training. We tried to put that out as much as possible, how we train our inspectors, so everybody in industry understands what the inspectors are getting as well, so that if we're all working off the same page, there's going to be better understanding between all parties. Here's one of the single source pages on asbestos, statement of health standards, information about diesel particulate. Here's a single source page on that. Once again, a lot of these links are going to open up to a number of other links that you could go to, so that you can drill down through these pages and see whatever's there. There's a little bit of information from NIOSH here. Once again, another link to the Health Inspection Procedures Manual, and that's probably there. It takes you directly to instead of to the handbook page, it takes you directly to the manual here, and you can look at chapters 1 through up to 22. In the next section on accident prevention tips, they're by Mimetype. Let's take a look at the metal surface. You'll find safety ideas, miners tips. These are best practices for these various issues. We'll take a look at conveyor cleanup, for instance, and you'll see there's a little bit of an animated section right here. You can look at this. These are wonderful for not only looking at best practice for supervisors, but also for using for training for folks in the mine as well. So you can look down through this list, and you'll see it's quite extensive. It's all alphabetized as you go down through it. And just because this one says that it comes from the metal surface doesn't mean that this is the only place that you'll be able to find it. A number of those presentations are applicable at metal underground, or at mills, or non-metal, and you'll find links there. So if you take a look at non-metal surface, I remember there was one right at the top of the list in the first page that we looked at on aging workforce considerations. Well, it shows up again here, and probably does on all of them. And depending on how what mine type that we're discussing, there will be more or less topics in there. When you get drill down into something like stone mills, it may be it's a little bit shorter. You can see we didn't have to scroll down nearly as far before we got to the bottom of the page there. So each one of these has it. They're all going to be laid out similarly. In the section on risk assessment and management, I'd like to put one kind of personal, professional comment out there that if I had to rename this, I would just call it risk management, because risk assessment is a part of risk management. And if someone does a risk assessment and finds a problem and they don't manage the situation and control the hazard, then it's they haven't completed their job, and you're looking at a potential knowing and willful violation if someone is looking at that. So, I particularly just like the term risk management when we're talking about that. Having said that, we have some materials that we put out about risk management. There's a section on SLAM risks, and there are a variety of materials that were published on for the SLAM risk program. They're all still available. We have some best practices here for stakeholders. Here's a nice long list of these. And so again, they're good for managers to use and supervisors, and for training miners as well. Job analyses, task analyses here, how to go about that, a little bit about the regulations, contacts. I hope all of these contacts are up to date, but I won't guarantee it. Part 46 training assistant.
Hey, Harvey.
Yes.
Relative to that, we have a question. The person is wanting to know if they can assume that all of these documents are up to date, or is this just a massive collection of documents? They use it as an example the noise emphasis program, but I mean, is it pretty much assumed that anything they pull up from the MSHA website is current, I guess is the question?
Well, I'd like to say yes, but I will tell you, if we go back to let me find it on here. I'll have to look for this. We had a section in one of these on hazards of acetylene. Okay, let's go to that one right now. See this? Notice that you get this. This website cannot be found. When we were reviewing these, within the last month or so, we determined that there were some issues in there, some statements made. We didn't like the way they were there. Didn't think that it was quite clear, quite right. Didn't necessarily fit in with the way MSHA was thought it should be handled. This one was particularly written by someone in tech support. They weren't massive. Well, they weren't. I can't really say that they were errors, but they were deviations in what we thought should be put there. When it's on Metal Nonmetal's resource page, we thought it should reflect what Metal Nonmetal thinks about it. So this one's been pulled down, and myself and another fellow are working on this thing right now, and it'll be put back up. So you may find something that isn't quite kosher, but we'd like to think that that for the most part, if it was put out there, then it was okay. Some of it is older, and some of it's historical material that you can go back to for review. Now, when you get up to the top of the page, when we're talking about, especially in the compliance and policy updates, a lot of this material, I'd say pretty much all of it, has been really scrutinized. It's been looked at by the people in metal, and some of it probably by our legal folks as well. So we took a very good scrub at this one before it was published. So I would think that this material up here is I hate to use the word more reliable, but that's the only way I can put it. When you get down into some of the older materials in here, they're probably not up to date. That one that I was showing you on fuel firing explosions, when this was put up, it was 36 fuel firing explosions. There are more have occurred since this was published. Not a lot, because as a result of the work that we did on it, we've driven, between us and industry, we've driven fuel fired explosions almost to zero at this point, instead of having as many as 1 or 2 a week, or in some cases 1 or 2 a day, sometimes at the same plant. So this is an example of one that's not going to be up to date, but the information on there, all right, about the types of equipment that would susceptible to explosions, and some best practices, what a well-designed system includes, that still is up to date. So does that help?
Yeah, it did. And can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Relative to like current information? Is there a place on MSHA's website where people can go sign up for email listservs? I know, for instance, I get a lot from, I think his name is William West.
Yeah, he's our webmaster.
Okay. Is there just one listserv that you're signed up for, or are there multiple ones from MSHA?
We're going to have to get back to you on that. Bill is a very knowledgeable guy, and he knows this website in and out far better than I do. So we'll have to provide some information back to you about listservs. If you wanted me to navigate to a particular spot on the website, I'm not sure I could do it. Bill could, but
okay.
Bill's not in the room.
Yeah, if we could, if there are like some things people should make sure they're signed up for, if you could email that over to me and I'll share it with all the participants, that'd be awesome.
Okay, I'm making a note of that. Okay, I've sort of reached the bottom of the page here. I think that I was down here at the training assistance and Part 46 compliance guidelines, links to a number of other documents, explanation here of the sections. But we've hit the bottom of the page now. The idea that I understood was sort of give an overview of what was on the page, and that it was a link to other resources. What else can I do to help?
Yeah, I think that's perfect and very, very informative. I will tell everybody on the phone, if you have any more questions, to go ahead and type them in. And I do have one for Chad, if he's still there.
Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
Let me switch with him.
So the question relates to the mine data retrieval system. The overview report that is pulled for a certain mine does not include the reportable injuries that were reportable due to medical treatment only. It only includes reportable injuries that resulted in restricted duty or days away from work. This is verified by looking at the accident selection where medical only reportable injuries are listed. Shouldn't the overview report include the medical treatment only reportable injuries, as well as the reportable injuries that resulted in restricted duty or days away from work?
Good question. That report includes degrees 1 through 5. So if I said all reportable injuries, that was a mistake on my part. So it splits up the fatalities, degree 1, and then the non-fatal days lost, which thus is degrees 2 through 5. I've never heard any discussion about adding that to the overview, but I will certainly pass that along.
Okay. Okay, and I'm not seeing any more questions. I personally found this very valuable, and I think everybody else did. And We really appreciate it, Chad and Harvey, your time. I know you're busy guys, and you know, you're both very impressive in your abilities, I will say, and we thank you very much. And what's our next webinar, Chris? Chris is looking that up. We have our annual meeting coming up next week, and we hope everybody online can attend. And we do have a
next webinar is on October 3rd. Slips, trips, and falls: the analysis and prevention.
Yeah, so we did a analysis of one of our facilities, and a consultant issued a very thorough report, and that same consultant's going to do a webinar on that date. So we hope everybody online will sign up for that. So with that, thanks again, Chad and Harvey, and I hope everybody has a good day. And we'll send out the PowerPoint and the couple follow-up items when we get them from Chad and Harvey. So thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.